transition to a monocurrency, as far as we are at the central bank, will be gradual and market-led. We don't want a monocurrency regime which is legislated. We have been there before and it didn't work. So let's allow this gradual transition, and all the indicators seem to be moving in the right direction.
The last part of the word mono is monocurrency. And I don't have a problem with monocurrency in the sense that I believe Zimbabwe must have its own currency. We must be a sovereign nation. However, I don't buy into the fact of that monocurrency becoming a reality by the 31st of December 2030. And Madam Governor, I will give you an example of Israel. You referred to it. It took Israel decades to achieve a monocurrency.
The informal sector is 80% and above. How are you going to have a monocurrency when you have two economies? You're talking about ZIC in circulation, 40% now, in the banking sector. But you have two banks now. You have the informal matrix bank, right? And you have the formal sector. Yours is thin, it's 20%, it's 40%. So we now use weights and say what is your ZIC component in the economy. 40% is not true. 40% is in the formal sector, which is 20%. So it cannot then dilute in the formal, there's nothing called ZIC.
Why do we need a monocurrency system? Conditions precedent for monocurrency system. That's a key highlight of my presentation. Then progress towards meeting those precedent conditions to monocurrency. Where are we as a country? Are we moving in that direction? What do we need to do to move in that direction? And a few takeaways. Move. On currency things there that you probably know, a symbol of nationhood and sovereignty. Prof, I know you said sovereignty last night. Yes, we need sovereignty as Africa, but we are not yet united. So for now, we guard sovereignty as individual nations. And from an economic point of view, a monocurrency enhances the country's growth potential. We heard a lot about potential throughout. So it allows us autonomous fiscal, monetary, exchange rate policies so that we are not being determined from other countries whose currencies we will be using. Also, to just note that strong currency like the US dollar, it erodes competitiveness of a country because you will be producing expensively and then we lose all the export markets. We want to move away from that. Let's move. We looked at other countries to just get lessons learned. We are not the first ones to be dollarized and try to de-dollarize or to move to a monocurrency, as we are saying. There are things that have to be met. For example, experiences of countries that have successfully transitioned to monocurrency have revealed the following precedents, because that's what we are going to measure ourselves with. Durable macroeconomic stability, adequate foreign currency reserves, stable exchange rate dynamics, banking sector stability, efficient and secure national payment systems, fiscal sustainability, increased use of the local currency. So those are the things we want to check. Where are we as Zimbabwe? Next slide. Move. That one is almost repeating. Move to the next one. Okay. Right. Okay. That one. So number one, conditions for precedence. I'm tracking them quickly. Optimal ZIG money supply management. This is on the side of the central bank. This variable is what we control from the central bank. And I'm giving you the graph there of month-on-month growth, and it's showing that we highlighted that monthly growth in the ZIG component of money supply has been stabilized. From peak levels of over 100% growth before the introduction of the ZIG to now an average of just 2.3 every month, giving us a total per year of probably just 32% annual growth in money. So these days, we are famous at the central bank, or infamous for a tight monetary policy. And we are sticking with it. because it is delivering on the stability that we need. Let's move. The next interesting variable when we are moving to monocurrency is, do we have reserves in the country to cover the local currency to whose monocurrency we want to move? If you look at that graph, it is telling us, I have summarized a few highlights there. The green line is our foreign reserve cover that we now have at the central bank. And let's see how it's covering the components of ZIG. We said we have sustained the accumulation of foreign currency reserves since the introduction of the ZIG. And we moved from 276 million in April last year when we introduced the ZIG. Now we are, as at end September, 900 million. And we are actually targeting to hit 1 billion of reserves by the end of the year. And these reserves are 4 times cover to our ZIG reserve money, which is the blue bars there. They are covered, if you go up to the green line, 4 times. And the red lines, the higher lines in the graph, are telling us that we are able to cover, or we cover all the money which we are calling ZIG in the country. It is backed at the Reserve Bank with gold and foreign currencies, mainly US dollar. And overall, as of now, we have 1.2 months of import cover, up from 0.4 months last year when we introduced the ZIG. So as a way of moving to monocurrency, the current status is very encouraging. If we continue with it, we will get there. Let's quickly move. Low and stable inflation. The graphs are speaking for themselves. Month-on-month inflation of the ZIG averaging 0.5%. In some months, it's actually 0. And we are looking at the annual inflation, hoping that by the end of the year, we will be at double digit, around 20%. We enter 2026, we should be single digit. And the SADC annual inflation is 7% for macroeconomic convergence in the region. Let's move. The other variable I flagged for monocurrency context, stable exchange rate with declining parallel market premiums. And that's exactly what that graph is showing. Our ZIG exchange rate to the US dollar has been around 26.66, and you can see the stability. The parallel market also, which is really the totally free market, has been stabilized because of the stability in the country, and there are no more excessive speculation or premiums from the parallel market. So we are doing well. Let's move. Increase the foreign currency and efficient exchange markets. Foreign currency, yes, we are giving you the graph there, and it is showing us that we are already at 10.35 billion from the first 8 months of the year. It will be higher by the end of the year, way better than our performance last year. Exports, diaspora remittances, and all the variables we have given you are contributing. Let's move. Increase the use of the ZIG is another key variable for us to go to monocurrency. And where are the statistics now? Basically, what we are picking from the data that is at the central bank is that in our national payment system, when we are tracking, it is showing us that ZIG usage has increased from 26% in April 2024 to around 40% now. And when we look at total deposits in the banks, 46% of the total deposits in our banks are now ZIG. So we are moving upwards. We are encouraged. Let's move. Banking sector stability. The quick variables we look at, financial sector stability is being assisted by the macroeconomic stability we are experiencing. Our assessment on all the variables in the banking sector are that the sector is safe, sound, and adequately capitalized. We have low levels of non-performing loans, which is good, 2.9% compared to the international benchmark of 5%. We have adequate liquidity levels at 57% compared to 30. 72% of the loans are going to the productive sectors. And I want to say thank you to our bankers here, the CEOs of banks. You are moving money into the right direction. Let's keep it up. Increase the financial inclusion. We are not leaving anyone behind. Financial inclusion is now at 84%. And we introduced the collateral registry to allow marginalized groups and all economic agents to use movable collateral to secure loans in the financial institutions. My last slide, takeaways. What are we saying? The transition to a monocurrency, as far as we are at the central bank, will be gradual and market-led. We don't want a monocurrency regime which is legislated. We have been there before and it didn't work. So let's allow this gradual transition, and all the indicators seem to be moving in the right direction. I thank you.
Wow, that was doctor, not bad. You before I move to somebody else, you say foreign currency cover is 4 times ZIG. But my question is, how indicative and important is that statistic? Because my question is, should you not be measuring your foreign currency cover over the import demand? And my sense right now is that import demand is distorted. Does the Reserve Bank have the numbers, what could be the exact numbers of import demand? And if it does, what's your cover of the nation's import demand? Is that a question that you can handle right now, or you want to reflect on it? Okay, please handle it, doctor. Thank you. So the point is, 4 months cover of what ZIG is, but that's an environment that you are managing. What about cover over monthly import demands, poverty?
Okay. Import cover, as I said, normally economies that are already on monocurrency, it is recommended that they must keep an import cover of 3 to 6 months of import cover, right? When you are 100% monocurrency. In Zimbabwe, let's take into account, I think what confuses most people is that, yes, we are saying we have significant foreign currency covering 1.2 months of import cover. We want to go to 6 months or 3 to 6 months by 2030, if we are at monocurrency by then. But now, we are still saying we are doing well. Why? Because we are in a multi-currency regime. The statistics are showing us that the imports of the country, 95% of them are coming from the foreign currency, which is in the companies, because of the use of both the dollar and the local currency. Okay. So the ZIG is just catering for now for just 5%, and we have enough foreign currency to cover that ZIG. That's what we are saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
The last question before I move on. Nigel, you're going to be the next one, and then Ken Sharp. The last question, looking at, I don't know any country that has been able to de-dollarize. Israel is usually the example that is given, but it doesn't fit into where we are as a nation. One thing that you don't highlight there is the confidence factor, the confidence deficit, the trust that sits with the public when they look at what you're doing. Remember when you were talking this morning, we're listening to you, and we are measuring you, each one of us, and saying, can we trust this doctor in terms of what she's saying? Does it reflect what I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis? What's your own personal 360-degree assessment of how we rank you as far as confidence is concerned? Do you get a sense we trust you?
Please trust me. But anyway, you are very right, MC. The confidence factor. But
please call me Trevor. Call me Trevor. That's okay. My name. Yeah?
The confidence factor. Remember, it's a legacy issue, and we are aware that we have to clean those legacy issues. But confidence in a central bank or in the monetary system, it's end. It's not legislated.
Right.
So we have to journey. That's why we are saying it's a journey.
Right.
We have to journey to end the confidence of the nation. And how do we journey? How do you judge us? Stability, macroeconomic stability, low inflation, and so on are the key indicators for us to earn back that trust. And I think we are on the road to that. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Nigel Seguru, do you trust Dr. Chipika?
Trevor, I'm forced to, because she was my lecturer for econometrics, which is quite a subject.
Right, so let's get into the issue, Nigel. We've got, she's mapped a way towards a monocurrency. But the debate that we have, de-dollarization or not de-dollarize, where do you sit and what are the key factors that you look at supporting sustainable monocurrency path?
Thank you, Trevor. I think I listened very carefully, and she pointed out what I counted to be eight objectives that the central bank is chasing. But because of the history, I just want to go back and perhaps trace this and where the discomfort arises. And I think we've got to juxtapose her proposals within that context. In my opinion, Zim's fiscal and monetary policy always dances led by the politics. And so if it's not one, it's the other. That is our overall challenge in Zim. So whenever we've had, like now, a commendable, this is probably one of the most stable periods that we've experienced, where for about a year, the 31% surge in gold output, the firmer platinum prices, the record tobacco crop, and all the tight monetary policy has given us this new era of stability. But in a context of what? 45 years where you have pockets of excellence, if I can give commendations to them. A year's excellence, I'm sure my former lecturer would concur, it's still statistically insignificant to actually persuade us fully that we've crossed the barrier. Now what's happening on the other side? So well done, kudos. And remember, this era began with a bit of a false start for ZIG. Okay? So let's assume between April and October, when we had that collapse in the ZIG, the new governor, let's assume he was cleaning shop. So he's cleaned up shop and it's worked for a year. I would say give us another 2-3 years and then I'm fully persuaded, Governor. Why? Because the shoe has shifted. It's now the fiscal side that we're not trusting. And to be fair and just, there's no Ministry of Finance official here. I would have loved to hear, but what I'm seeing is no quasi-fiscal activity taking place at the Reserve Bank, but we hear stories of government contractors not being paid. We hear stories, and the CEOs are here. That's the good thing. So it's not like I'm pontificating. TBs not being honored in terms of maturities. TBs being issued and not being measured as being accurate. When you get the IMF coming through and pointing out that the stock of debt seems inaccurate, there's a variance between what the minister or the government officials are saying and then what the records are actually saying, then you've got a problem. And then I would say, if you want market confidence, Trevor, the markets are always your signal. Are you trading this paper? So government issues paper to fund its activities because it's blocked quasi-fiscal activities from the Reserve Bank. But now, what is the ministry itself doing with that paper? Does the market have sufficient confidence to buy the paper and at what discounts. Now, if we have an opaque market as we have, we don't quite know what's happening with the quantities, we don't quite know what's happening with the yields, we don't have issuance, and that's your standard, indicator. When your central bank on behalf of Treasury can now go into the market and issue a Treasury bill, issue a short-term government stock, a medium government stock, a long-term government stock for its funding, then we've got the stability. So those are the...
government stock.
Yes. In addition, because you still want your water infrastructure, you still want your, sewer system and all that. So as we speak, for me, in addition to the 8 odd indicators that she's given me, I want to go across to the other side. Because, it's like musical chairs between these three. The politics or governance, the fiscal side, and the monetary side. There's always a naughty child between the three. So if this one is behaving, we say kudus, but what's happening to the other one? And if the other one misbehaves, it all collapses down to zero, and we've been there. We've watched this movie once too often. And so we're saying the other one, I don't know how he's behaving, but I have suspicions that there is misbehavior. And why? If you are not misbehaving, Trevor,
I'll give you 1 more minute.
if you are not misbehaving, you go ahead and you issue Treasury bills, the market will absorb them. The pension funds will buy them. If you are behaving very well, you go and issue a bond in London. Guess what? If the Zambians are doing that, and they can issue a bond and it can be subscribed for, then you are behaving. That's what actually brings confidence in a fiscal and monetary and governance system that stabilizes financial markets and allows us as the private sector to be able to raise money anyway. After all, we're one of the few countries that uses the US dollar, an internationally acceptable currency. Right now, our Victoria Falls Stock Exchange should be pumping. Why? Because there's no currency risk. When we ask ourselves why we're not raising equity, why we're not raising debt, when we need infrastructure expenditure to the order of $40 billion, we have questions.
And your currency, Nigel, is backed by gold, and gold price has just gone up.
What a privilege. I mean, we should be shining. Right now, the focus, in closing, the focus should be to decouple us from sanctions, allow us to have a free play for our financial capital markets. Thank you.
To summarize you, and this is my reading and you can't deny it, you've just said it's the politics stupid. We will leave it.
I was more diplomatic than that. Thank you.
Ken, I know your passion for the property market. You sent stuff to me for bed night reading last time. I really loved it. And I think if a lot of people have access to that, if you could share, that would be fantastic. I want you to be really rather focused on what a currency, a stable currency, monocurrency, US dollar currency would do to the property market, to rebuilding the mortgage sector, as it were. Some of us I bought my first property using a mortgage facility. I bought my second property by a mortgage facility. A lot of young people here don't know what a mortgage facility looks like, which is sad. But I love the argument that you are propositioning to building a mortgage, the mortgage economy back, which will be huge in terms of job creation and economic activity. Please be laser focused. I'm going to time you 5 minutes on that, please.
I will time myself, Trevor, and stick to the 5 minutes. Let me just start by saying, in my opening remarks, the word that we have to deal with in this room today, which for me is the elephant in the room, is the word mono. You see, the problem with mono, like a monopoly, it gives someone all the say and no one else. So I don't like monopolies. I like free trade. I like competition. In fact, in our sector, I encourage competition. I love it that although we're leading the way, there are now dozens of other companies replicating what we started a decade ago. Because to build a country cannot be done by one man or by one company. The second word that I don't like is this monologue. Because if we just hear one directional voice from one source, it doesn't instill confidence. It actually instills fear. So I think today's discussion, which is a dialogue, is very important. As for myself, I've never been invited, Madam Governor, to any discussion, neither with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, neither with the Ministry of Finance. And I've asked for that audience, not for myself to come personally, but for our industry, the real estate sector, to be represented. I don't know if the Reserve Bank and Ministry of Finance have done that dialogue with other industries, which I would also encourage. However, my presentation today is based on the real estate sector alone. And it's a frightening number. You'll see a presentation up on the screen which I'll explain a bit about. But I would say that we have to have that dialogue before any permanent decisions are made, because like you say, Madam Governor, they have lasting implications. And unfortunately, history teaches us, and it tends to repeat itself. So we can't afford a situation where we get to 31st of December 2030 and then find ourselves making decisions that none of us had really accepted at the onset. The last part of the word mono is monocurrency. And I don't have a problem with monocurrency in the sense that I believe Zimbabwe must have its own currency. We must be a sovereign nation. However, I don't buy into the fact of that monocurrency becoming a reality by the 31st of December 2030. And Madam Governor, I'll give you an example of Israel. You referred to it. It took Israel decades to achieve a monocurrency. History shows us that in the early 1980s, hyperinflation in Israel led to dollarization, similar to where we are today. In 1985, they had an economic stabilization plan, which is something along the lines of what we're now doing with ZIC. In the 1990s, they promoted the local currency. In the late 90s, they targeted inflation. And the early 2000s, there was currency liberalization, where the shekel became fully convertible in 2003. And only in 2008, some almost 30 years later, was it fully converted into a monocurrency. And if we look at Israel's wealth, the Jews around the world, I'm sure none of us will disagree that their resources are far more reaching, and they have far deeper pockets than us Zimbabweans, with friends all over the world to support them. So I think it would be impossible for us as a nation to guarantee that within 5 years we can have a monocurrency that takes care of all of our needs. And I'm encouraged by the words, Madam Governor, that you said this morning, that we can trust you, because I would like to give you the trust and benefit of the doubt. But I would also like to see your words put into action, because you've said this is going to be a market-led decision. Up to now, it has not been a market-led decision. My brother Nigel just confirmed there's more than $1 billion of paper outstanding by government. How is it going to meet that obligation to pay that $1 billion if it is not to print the ZIG? Where are the US dollars going to come to pay it? Where is the obligation to pay the treasury bills that has been defaulted? We're sitting on defaulted treasury bills right now. In fact, I have treasury bills maturing in April next year, just within 6 months, where the market is offering me 50% discount. Where is the confidence if I'm only getting 50% of my value today? This hotel we're staying in is charging a rate of 32 to 1. It's advertised downstairs. Where's the confidence of this hotel in the ZIG? Let us build more confidence. Let us work together so that by the time, because you've said we're not putting a time limit, but if there's not a time limit, why does the legislation say US dollars is expiring in 23? In our sector, we need, as you can see on the board, 20 billion today, not in 5 years' time. $20 billion of mortgages today. Trevor, if you allow me 2 more minutes.
I'll give you 2 minutes, yeah.
The reason why we need 20 billion today is because 100 billion US dollars is the value of the homes that have title deeds in Zimbabwe with no mortgages against them, zero leverage. So if we just take a low risk view of 20% leverage, loan to value, 20% is almost nothing. And inject 20 billion US dollars today into the economy, we know that for every dollar injected of mortgages, we create $3 of economic activity. The 20 billion will give us 60 billion in GDP. That more than doubles our GDP of the country. But in order to do that, we cannot print ZIG. And Madam Governor, I know it would not be truthful if you were to say to me, even in 2030, you could give me 20 billion ZIG for mortgages, because that is an impossibility. If you reach 3 billion in import cover, it will be a great achievement. But 3 billion of reserves is not 20 billion. So where am I going to get the 20 billion from? Because I need it today. And there are funders in the world with trillions of dollars available for mortgages. But they need to see long-term tenure. They need 30 years. And by the way, the people we offer mortgages to should also have a long-term tenure, so the young people of Zimbabwe can afford to repay the mortgage. So if we're talking about US dollars for 30 years, how can you talk about its expiry date in 5 years? There's something not right. Lastly, my message is the trio. I believe in threes. God is 3 in 1. I have 3 of my beautiful ladies today with me. My mother represents the past, and definitely we need to respect and honor the past. My wife, who represents the current, and definitely the current speaks to us every day. We have to listen. But more importantly, I have my daughter, the future. And just like that, if we reflect on the past, the current, and the future, where are you going as a Reserve Bank? Where are we going as the Ministry of Finance into the future? Because our future is predicted to 2050 at Westprop with 1 billion bricks. But we know without mortgages, it is very difficult for us to get there.
Ken,
I rest my case. Thank you.
Doctor, if that didn't touch your heart as a mother, and then as a governor of the Reserve Bank, then something's wrong. And if you leave here and get onto the plane and do nothing about his appeal, can we sit down and talk about this thing? Everybody's sitting here on a property that's not mortgaged. Governor, his request is, can we unlock that value? Can we unlock that asset? What stops that? You are not on trial, Madam Governor. It's a conversation that we are having. There's a thing that I hear from what Nigel has said and what you said, which is transparency. You know, when I was a young journalist at the Financial Gazette, Nigel was my source. He never leaked anything. And one thing that I got excited about was reporting on the government going on and issuing treasury bills. 30-day treasury bills. We knew when it would mature, when it was oversubscribed and so forth. The market knew what was happening. We knew the interest rates in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. Why can't we get to that? Because it's a vital ingredient of building trust. The more information you communicate and is credible, and it can be checked on what you said yesterday and what's happened today, the more these people are going to trust you. The more they're going to remove those US dollars under their beds, in the gardens, dug somewhere else, and put them in the market. But for me, that was a very impassioned human connection that came through there. And guess what? We're building this nation so that that humanity of us flourishes as much as possible. Sorry, I can talk the whole day. Did that make sense to you? Did it appeal to you? Wonderful. Do you want to respond to anything that is said, Doctor? Not now. Okay. My good doctor friend who's been fired before, before you give us your 5 minutes, just reflections on what the governor has just said here, and then you can fire on your 5 minutes. I hold you honest with the time, eh?
Thank you very much, Comrade Trevor. Let me appreciate you all for coming here. I don't take it lightly. So it's an honor to be here. I had a meeting with the Governor, Central Bank, and his team. And I made it very clear that I was impressed with the work they are doing. And indeed, I'm still impressed with the work which they are doing. I'm difficult to please, Madam Governor, because we are academics, and our job is to break down the pieces into various pieces. And once we say we are happy, you would have done your work. I think for me, the major issue I want to highlight from the start is that as much as I'm impressed with what central bank is doing based on the metrics, for example, hitting $900 million in terms of reserves is a milestone. And we cannot play to the gallery and say it's nothing. It is not nothing, it's massive. Managing money supply, the way you are managing it, the cover for the ZIG covered by the US dollars, it's a good thing. There is an issue which, of course, I want to pose, which you might need to respond to, the 30% retention and how it is being paid. So whenever I talk about what I'm happy with, I'm asked this question to say, but they are taking 30% of exporters. So I think that, Madam Governor, we need clarification to say, are you paying 30% from the exporters? I'm aware that the Minister of Finance has got a portion in that, of blame in that area. Now, coming back to my submission, colleagues, what must be very clear is that central bank alone cannot take us to monocurrency. And the unfortunate thing is that in this country, we are hearing more of central bank and Minister of Finance as key policy actors who should take us to monocurrency. You can even see by default or by design, even this panel, there's no Minister of Agriculture, there's no Minister of Industry and Commerce, there's no Minister of Energy, there's no Minister of Transport, and traditionally, every year, we don't see them. Yet they hold the critical roles which the supply side, the governor, acting governor, is talking about in terms of supply side. But I want to build on what Ken said in terms of the trajectory to monocurrency as being a difficult one. He actually eat into my thinking when he was giving example of Israel, so I will not repeat that. But I will come back to Zimbabwe to say, remember, we are 28 years by 14 November 2025 into currency crisis. If I take you back to 14 November, the Black Friday, 1997, if we are superstar though, why are we stuck in 28 years in currency crisis? And that's a very important question we must ask ourselves. The things which has kept us stuck, I will unpack them very briefly. The first one is the absence of strong institutions, which is critical to eliminate the corruption, to deal with the corruption decisively, and take away rent-seeking behavior. Because when there's corruption, there's no production. We are the only country in the world which is trading in currency. We trade in currency. It's a big business in town. We trade billions of dollars in currency, in the streets, not on the stock market, not through the bank. A currency is a commodity in Zimbabwe. It's traded. So it can only happen when there's corruption. So we need strong institutions. We cannot talk of $1.8 billion illicit financial flows when we have strong institutions. We can't. It's again a disease. So if that $1.8 billion is domesticated, what was going to happen? We don't have structural policies which are robust. We have policies, industrial policy, agricultural policy, but they are empty. There are no clear pillars, there are no clear strategic goals, there's no clear strategic framework and a roadmap and a strong M&A. Let me just give you a simple example. We are all here. We know the end is one. Where are we? It's finished, it's ending now. Was there a meeting of CEOs where it was reviewed to see what we've achieved on an annual basis? Is ending. I go to companies in their strategy sessions. I look at, I participate in the strategy, giving the economic outlook. One thing which I've learned from companies, in their strategies, before they look at the new strategy, they review, they present the previous strategy, how it is performed, and they learn from it. But in Zimbabwe, we don't do that. So that's our area where we are failing. Structural policies, we don't have them. Structural policies which drives production. Structural policies which drives production. Structural policies which create jobs. Structural policies which kills the informal sector. The informal sector is 80% and above. How are you going to have a monocurrency when you have two economies? Doc, you're talking about ZIC in circulation, 40% now, in the banking sector. But we have two banks now. We have the informal matrix bank, right? And you have the formal sector. Yours is thin, it's 20%, it's 40%. So if we now use weights and say, what is your ZIC component in the economy? 40% is not true. 40% is in the formal sector, which is 20%. So it cannot then dilute in the informal, there's nothing called ZIC. It's zero. So that matrix which you're presenting there is not gonna give us assurance to say we are making progress, because you are talking about a formal economy which is very small. So we need to kill the informal sector by creating jobs. Now I want to talk about, within a minute, quickly, the exchange rate mechanism which you are using, the willing buyer, willing seller, is being incapacitated by two things: structural rigidities, few banks controlling foreign currency, right? So there's no free market. Now, that one we can say is a structural issue. But the second one is the policy failure, policy mistake, where you say you can't pay electricity in ZIC, you pay in foreign currency because you're an exporter. You can't pay tax in ZIC, you have to pay using currency of trade. That's not the Reserve Bank, but that's Ministry of Finance, right? That policy is a policy mistake. So why is an exporter going to liquidate ZIC US dollars after 30% is not paid from the export retention, whatever reason? Then, secondly, if I liquidate my 70% remaining, I can't pay tax with that money. I can't pay electricity with that money. So why should I liquidate it? So already you are killing the willing buyer, willing seller. The last one, in 10 seconds, Treasury is the biggest threat to monocurrency. It has $8.9 billion of domestic debt it has created in recent years. In over and above that, there is a looming $2.2 billion of non-payments. That is $1.2 billion from service providers. Out of $1.2 billion, is $300 million for input services suppliers, right? Then there's also $800 million of treasury which are maturing, and $175 million which was not paid last time. So we are talking about $11.2 billion, which is killing the economy. The command agriculture, the command economy is a mess. We have a raw development 8.0, which means 8 areas of interventions. So how are you going to have production when you have 8 areas with the presidential prefix? How is the private sector going to come in? So in short, 2030, we will not have a monocurrency in as much as we want, and we must not be angry about it. If you tell me a gift, you can't have $1 million next year with the trend you are going. Your roadmap, sorry, in 10 seconds, your roadmap is Reserve Bank roadmap. It's not a national roadmap. Yeah. So who is in that roadmap? Because all these things I'm talking about should be in that roadmap. So that we have working groups which are focused on specific thematic areas. So central bank has done their own part, but make it a national roadmap. You can share it because you are looking at monetary affairs, but we need a national roadmap. And all of us become part of it. And
so essentially you're saying we own this thing, Governor.
Yes.
We want to be part of this thing, Governor.
Correct.
Were you to make a call today, Prof, in terms of US dollar or ZIC, long term, what call would you make?
Long-term plan to say, when is it going to be?
Yeah.
I think for me, Zimbabwe can't be compared with other countries if we kill corruption.
Yeah. Okay.
We can have ZIC and we can have US dollar in 2030 if we kill corruption today. Mm-hmm. You know how much foreign currency we are making every day, every year?
Yeah.
Double digit, billions. This year we'll be hitting $14 billion.
So one of your biggest concerns is corruption.
Corruption. Kill corruption.
Yeah.
We can quickly build those reserves, but the way I'm sequencing my presentation is because of the status quo, which have not changed.
Yeah.
That's why I've started, we need strong institutions and
Sure.
political will to stop corruption.
Policies.
2030, we can have US dollar gone
Yeah.
outrightly if we kill corruption.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go to Attorney Shoriwa. You are a lawyer. I'm sure you see a lot of corruption. Maybe you look the other side and you see some corruption. This is the sad thing about our country, good people, and we all need to own up to that. And this is the truth about it: is we have corrupt lawyers, we have corrupt accountants. We have corrupt CEOs, and some of them might be right in this room. We must own to that. And one of the smallest bits of corruption that I see every day, for me it's corruption, is when you guys who drive these big cars that are Bluetooth enabled throw out Coca-Cola bottles out of the window. You guys sitting in here with those big cars. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. How much nonsense do you participate in? How much nonsense do you stand? That's where it starts. If you're comfortable with chucking out a bottle out of your car as you're driving, whilst you're talking on your cell phone, which is illegal, you are equally guilty of corruption. So how much corruption have you seen? Shall we start there? What's your assessment of corruption? Because that man has put it on the table. It's a big thing. We're not going to get this monocurrency that we want for as long as corruption is there. Does it worry you? Where do you sit? You're a lawyer. Talk to us about that.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do you want to
Trevor.
get closer to the mic? So that we
Yeah,
can-
sure. Thank you, Trevor, with the most difficult question of the day, but it does have an easy answer. The levels of corruption that we have in the country are not just alarming, they're debilitating. But what we have as a situation at the moment is that the system, the entire system itself, does not support honest business. So every person that has tried to do business in a structured and honest way, pay his taxes, is going to go broke. Because there's the next person somewhere that is able to do what you do.
That's depressing, isn't it?
Certainly.
The entire system is rigged against anybody wanting to do business in an honest manner, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly.
Anyway, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. You've depressed us enough. We start. I'm starting the clock now. Your presentation, 5 minutes.
Yes, and I'd like to thank the panelists that have spoken before me. The advantage of speaking last is that you are able to say they've said everything that I wanted to say, and there's a lot of our judges will just say, I agree, I agree, I agree. But I would like to bring some perspectives to this. I'll just start off with the conversation I had in an elevator in 2009 with a man that worked for a pension company. And we were just talking about life in general, and he says, you young guys must be having it good. We had just gotten into the dollar era. And I said, no, but you guys have worked for the last 40 years odd, so you must be pretty rich by now. And he says, I'll tell you a story. You and I are exactly the same. I just started working this year, like you, because I've lost my pensions, I've lost my savings. So the difference between me and you is I still have kids going to university. You have no children. At that time I didn't. And he says, so you are probably in a better off position than I am now. I think the most difficult situation that we have is that we tend to forget. Zimbabwe has the memory of a goldfish. We forget where we've come from. And I think maybe I would defer to a quote by a guy called George Santayana, who says, those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. And the most alarming thing is the number of times that we repeat this. That must scare any person. This does not require economists. In fact, this discussion we must remove economists from this discussion. This is a common sense discussion. Because there are certain things where you can get lost in all the jargon that is being spoken. And because it is a common sense discussion, I would like to just take a minute of my 5 to just take you back where we've come from. So at independence, we inherited the Rhodesian dollar, which at the time was 1:1 with the US dollar. And over the years, it's devalued, and by the time we got to 2006, we started doing all sorts of redenominations. 2006, 2008, 2009. These are all major currency events. You had money in your pocket, and a bunch of zeros were taken away. One thing that is common is that every time you have a currency event, somebody loses value. So right now, anyone that is hearing the debate of road to monocurrency is wondering, where is the shoe going to fit this time? Am I going to lose or am I going to gain? But what I can assure you is somebody is going to lose. You had 3 currency redenominations. You then abandoned the Zimbabwean dollar completely in 2009. Demonetized it in 2015. And then in 2015, we started this multi-currency discussion. Now, this multi-currency discussion came after on the backdrop of us having used basically the US dollar from about 2009. We ran out of money, physical money, so people were standing in queues at ATMs, there was no money there. And there was some level of dishonesty that I need to point out. Because there are things that were not told. So somebody will come in 2016 and say, I'm introducing a bond note. And this bond note is just to assist with change. It's not much. It's not a big issue, it's to assist with change. At about this time, the CEO Roundtable, I was privileged enough to go for a meeting with the then governor, with the CEO Roundtable executives. And I was listening to the discourse. One of the issues that came up was nothing could possibly go wrong. Africa Bank has our back. In fact, there is a $200 million guarantee on this. If it ceases to be 1:1, you have a guarantee. I will never stop talking about this because I sat in that meeting and I asked him the most legal question you would expect. Please, may I see the guarantee? I bet you nobody in this room has ever seen that guarantee from Africa Bank. And for those that understand how a guarantee works, if you guarantee his obligation and he fails to pay, the guarantor is supposed to pay. Who was ever paid out of an African guarantee for the loss of the 1:1 value? But here we are. Errors repeatedly happening. I've asked the governors that have come after, governor that came after, and he denied that there was ever something of this nature. And I hope I'm not totally running out of my time because I just have a few nuggets to run through. After 2016, RTGS currency was then introduced. Yes, RTGS currency comes, whatever that's supposed to mean, RTGS became a currency. But we then went monocurrency, and that lasted 9 months. 9 months, Zimbabwean dollar, monocurrency collapsed. Why are we doing this again? And I'm going to just give you the reason why we are getting to where we are. It speaks to what the good doctor has already said. Weak institutions. The solution in Zimbabwe, which nobody wants to talk about, is that the Reserve Bank must be reformed. It must become an independent institution. Because you've got an election coming in 2028. We know what happens with funding around elections. And we know that there are going to be problems with our currencies. Why do we keep subjecting the Reserve Bank to the control of politicians? And don't get me started on Parliament, who should be giving the oversight, because they don't. So instead of having politicians providing the oversight function to ensure that the Reserve Bank is being true to its mandate, why don't we just totally get it out of the realm of the politicians and have a more independent central bank so that the good deputy governor can sleep well at night knowing that there is no phone call that can come and say, we know what the policy is, but we need money now. So what guarantee do we have, Doc, that when the demand to print this monocurrency in 2030 comes, the Reserve Bank is going to say no, because that is our problem. We are going to print the hell out of it, and we're going right back to where we've come from. And I really don't want to go through another currency event. I don't know if you do. Thank you.
That breaks my heart right there. That breaks my heart right there. But I was going to ask you a question. Why do you put up with all this nonsense? Don't answer. You don't answer.
That is a dangerous question. You don't want to know the answer.
Yeah, and that question is directed to everybody else. Why do we put up with this nonsense? Okay? Because that's what it comes down to. But you make a very powerful point, which unfortunately the Deputy Governor cannot respond to. The importance of an independent, autonomous Reserve Bank, central bank, and we've got examples of that all over the world. And you raise the red flag, which is very worrying. 2028 to 2030, the good policies that the Deputy Governor is talking about right now will be totally out of your control. What does that mean for our savings, for the mortgages that we're talking about? I mean, this conversation can be very depressing. I'm going to take. I want, as I go to the audience, to the floor, if you could reflect on issues that you disagree with each other. I don't want us to come here to agree with each other and so forth. If you could reflect on one or two things that you want to engage any members of the panel before, after we've engaged, given an opportunity to people listening to us right now. Are there people with pointed questions? If you could show by raising hand. There's the president with the capital P sitting right here. Shall we give him the mic? Oh, you've got your own mic, yes, please. And please, to the point, not statements. You're not on the panel.
Before the president's question, if we can just, I would like to ask the governor a question relating to the last trio that I mentioned, the future. So if you were to project to 2030, let's imagine for a moment, Governor, we're now sitting on the 31st of December, 2030. Hopefully we'll be celebrating New Year's, but most of us will be fearful of the next day. Because are we saying the ZiG is replacing all other currencies on the 1st of January 2026? And if it is, why?
Please reflect on that, Governor. I will overrule him because I'm the boss here. Just click your thing there. President with the capital P, please a pointed question, please. Thanks.
Trevor, the pointed question without a preamble will not make sense. First, let me thank Dr. Chipika for the courage, because most ministers don't want to come and face us, particularly as we call it a big debate. We respect you, and certainly we thank you. However, your question, trust me, I don't. And I will not. Right, the first is that the concept of surrender requirements for exporters, it means it's earned money. Somebody has sold, they've been paid. And government goes for my receipts. They just sit on my 30%. Is it tax? Is it a loan? What is it? Are you expropriating my account? Because if you take my 30% surrender and you can't pay the equivalent, it's part of my business model. I need to be managing my cash flows. What is it? And to thresholds, everybody here will be surprised. You are exposed in excess of 3 billion ZiG to the exporters. Hope something has happened in the last 4 or 5 weeks. What is that arrangement? And government must come out clear. Is it with Reserve Bank or is it in the Consolidated Revenue Fund? I think, Governor, you need to be honest with us there, because export performance is going to start going down. The second one, Governor, blended inflation. I heard that concept recently here in Zim in the last 6 months. I maybe say something about that. But Governor, why are we not buying fuel in Zig if all indicators are as flowery as you indicate? Why are we not buying fuel? Because and government must be honest. That's why I said I don't trust you. Where do you think all these entities, individuals, are accessing the US dollar? If I cannot go to my bank on my Zig balance, dilute my Zig to get the US dollar to buy fuel, you can't. If any of my colleagues can confirm, can we do that? So where is that money coming from? Is it strategic silence? And you're going to pounce on us at some convenient place somehow?
You've made your point, President.
I
Do you
still
have
have
another
another
one? Okay, right.
We know that this economy is now 70% informalized. Governor, does it mean that formal policy is regulating 30% of the economy? We are having free riders in the economy, we are subsidizing that. And lastly, Trevor.
Because you are the president, with a small p.
Trevor, I want to ask this question
Sure.
to all the panelists. Who is clamoring for de-dollarization? And who has got the interest in de-dollarization?
That's a good one. Shall I stop you right there and ask, who's clamoring for de-dollarization? Are you? Let's just take a quick thing. Are you?
I'm not, but I'm mindful of the fact that it would make sense to have a local currency. I would want the pride and also that the Reserve Bank has the full suite of tools to be able to regulate the economy.
Major point.
Makes sense.
Are you clamoring for de-dollarization?
I'm looking for $20 billion US.
Okay.
Not Zig.
Okay, you answered that. Nigel, are you clamoring for de-dollarization?
Trevor, I want to bring in another dimension, which unfortunately, because of our traumas as Zimbabweans, we then believe that the greenback is actually the answer to God's problems, or to all the problems that we have here. Unfortunately, it isn't. The sad news, as you and I know, when we brought Robert Kiyosaki to this country a month ago, is that the US dollar itself is ill-fated. The printing of the US dollar mirrors what has happened in Zimbabwe. Unfortunately, it's internationally accepted, and therefore people think it's okay. But people must give attention to what's happening with the central banks and the Eastern economies and the European economies before all reserves were actually held in US dollars.
Wow, that's a powerful point, Nigel.
So now, they are moving away. They're going into gold, they're going into rare minerals, they're going into other things.
Bitcoin?
Yes, because they don't trust the US dollar. And that's a conversation we need to have.
Absolutely. Wow.
So I'm not all,
Yeah.
I'm not all in for a US dollar. I'm all in for multi-currency and commendations again. These are some of the good things that the central bank does, which unfortunately are thrown away with the bathwater. Because when you then go for gold, you go for other minerals, you're actually better off than the US dollar. The US dollar, get this book, is ill-fated within itself.
Absolutely.
So give us another, mark my words, another maybe 5, 10, 20 years at the most, we'll be talking a different story.
Absolutely.
I rest my
I
case.
think, wow, that's a powerful point right there, because if you see what the US administration is doing to the autonomy of the Federal Reserve, that says quite a lot, and you already are seeing a lot of people that are on the board dancing around to please the president. And the president and his family has made $2 billion from their cryptocurrencies. Fascinating stuff. Are you clamoring for de-dollarization?
Yes, Trevor.
All right.
100%.
All right.
As an economist, you would agree with me that US dollar is a hard currency. We can't export. We can't be competitive. Our GDP will shrink with the US dollar. We need to do serious internal devaluation. That is cutting costs. we have difficulties, of course, in growing our economy. I frequent South Africa. South Africans, they like their currency. Even myself, when I was issuing invoice to my clients, I will issue it in rand. What we need, Governor, is a working currency. When I'm driving my car, it doesn't run fast because I put fuel in ZiG or in US dollar. I want a working currency, and I want my currency. Yeah, I was in Botswana. I saw a calendar of 1998 in a Bureau de Change with the same currency, same denominations. So we need our currency. There's no question about that. But well, at least I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes we are misquoted as economists to say, we say it's not going to work as if we don't like it. We want our currency. This issue the president was raising about the export retention is a non-issue in a working economy in the region, for example, in South Africa and Botswana. When the money comes through as foreign currency, it's changed into rand, no one complains because there's a single exchange rate. And when they want their foreign currency, they get it.
Actually, the Reserve Bank calls you and says, you've got money coming into your account, US at 30,000 US dollars. Where is it coming from? You tell them, Kwichi, it's in your account.
Exactly.
And you don't.
So
you don't debate.
it's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
It's a pricing issue.
So the president, sorry to cut you, Doctor. So the president has asked Governor 3 questions. The 30% retention, that's my money. You're taking it. Are you borrowing it? What's happening? What's happening? You know, it comes back to the issue of property rights. It's my money. You can't just take it and suddenly give me tens on what should happen to my money. What's your response to that question?
Thank you, Trevor.
I'm going to protect you as much as possible because you're not on trial here.
Okay, I'm just answering that one.
Sure,
for
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay, the 30% surrender, maybe the easiest way of answering it is to say what Professor Ngano said. In a normal economy, where there is already functioning monocurrency, what do exporters do? They are exporting things from our ground or what they've manufactured or whatever. When the money comes back, you gave the South Africa example, it doesn't go into as foreign currency to stay with the exporter. It is actually changed into rands or whatever the local currency of that country. But it is because if the markets are working there, this exporter has got that comfort because when they then need to import something in their business, they know they can just take the rands, go and get the US dollar from the bank and change to US dollar in the bank and do their imports. And what I'm saying is, we are not yet there. That's the ideal way we want to go to. So in the meantime, Zimbabwe, where are we? We are not in that ideal. We are in a multi-currency regime. So we are saying there are other players in the economy who are not exporters, but who need foreign currency also. They are not the generators. I can give you the example of a company like Econet. I'm sure they don't mind. Everybody knows Econet doesn't generate foreign currency. But it's a heavy consumer of foreign currency in the country, and we need them. Their systems are running the whole economy. So where do we get the foreign currency? To reallocate to important economic players who don't generate it. So we do the little bit, instead of taking 100% like in South Africa, we just take 30% to allow us to reallocate. Where does it go, Chairman? So far, the arrangement in our country is that when we've liquidated rather that 30%, 50% of it is going to the Ministry of Finance. I will not talk about the Ministry of Finance. I don't work there. The other half, which comes to the Reserve Bank, we pay for it. We don't owe anyone against it because we need that money. It's part of that foreign currency which we are using to build the reserves that are defending the currency. So I know a lot of issues have been raised on the fiscal side. I will put them aside for now and concentrate on what we are in control of as your central bank. Thank you.
The president, raises another issue. Why are we not? Firstly, I mean, he was very polite to you. We are so grateful actually that you are here to be taking all this pressure from us. You really could have said you don't want to come, but you are here, and we're very grateful. Shall we give a round of applause? And I think that comes from the pedigree that you are, former academic, so you can stand any pressure. But after giving you all that recognition, he says, I don't trust you. That must hurt. And why are you not allowing us to buy fuel in Zig? Is that a question that you can answer and be sure you have your job on Monday?
It's a question I can answer.
Yes, please.
Because to me, as I said, we are not yet in the ideal. We are journeying to the ideal. The reason why fuel has not been one of the priority sectors to be enforced to buy in Zig is because when we are still in the multi-currency regime, we are better off ensuring that fuel is available in the country. I think the lawyer referred to us forgetting. Let's not forget how many hours we were spending per day in fuel queues under one of those legislated monocurrencies that didn't work. We don't want to go back there. So we are saying fuel is so critical in running the economy. All your companies, everything is fuel. Let's for now make sure it's stable, it's there in the country. The economy is growing, and we want to thank everyone's efforts for that. But we will come as we journey towards 2030, or 2030 to me is just a date. Let's say as we journey towards monocurrency, we will get to a stage where it will be safe to release the fuel sector to be in Zig. Thank you.
The other thing that I'm getting quite strongly here, Governor, which I really wish the Governor himself was here, is that why don't we talk to each other like we all have a stake in this thing? None of us is much more important than others, which is why when your team came to me and said, you're asking for, I said, no, I'm in charge right now, Governor. Why don't we talk to each other like we respect each other? Why don't we listen, take time to listen to what everybody is saying? And give me the sense, like the chairman is saying, that 30% is my money. Yes, you're superintending over it. But can you talk to me like I'm a stakeholder and not a subject? I think that's the thing that came even from Ken. I've never been, he's a big stakeholder in terms of mortgages and properties and what can be done there. But why don't we take everybody into our confidence? Why don't we give a sense that everybody in here is a stakeholder and let's march together rather than dictating terms? Why not be transparent on these issues that you're talking to us about right now, instead of issuing edicts and statutory instruments without consultation? Over to you.
Thank you. That point is well taken. Actually, that's the response I was going to give to Ken, to say. Actually, just probably a few weeks ago, we issued our stakeholder charter where we pledged for the first time as the Reserve Bank to say we will be talking to the people of Zimbabwe on this journey of the monetary policy in the country. So I want to assure Ken that definitely we will be calling you. I will tell this to the Governor. We have been dialoguing with others, the other bigger
and
bodies.
We've got witnesses here.
Yes,
if you don't call
we
him, you will be in trouble, madam.
Because we are actually doing probably things that are unconventional in central banking. We have opened ourselves so much. We may not have done it enough, but we have been calling many big bodies to come and dialogue with us so that we hear what is required.
Well done.
And whenever a stakeholder says, I have not been called, you will definitely be called.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. I think that's the spirit, in terms of we forget the past, we forget what's happened to us, but it's important when we get together in the room and hear each other's pain directly from where the pain is coming from. Another question or two? Oh, there's a lot of hands. There's a gentleman behind the cameraman there. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Governor. I'm sure mine could be specific so that it doesn't fall in the cracks. It's an issue that Ken Sharp referred to with respect to treasury bills that are going unhonored. Thank you.
That one is very easy for me. The only thing I can do is to alert Minister of Finance that there were all these complaints around them. But as a central banker, we are not the ones who issue the T-bills. We are banker to government. So Minister of Finance says, we want to raise money, our banker, we are doing this in the market. We cannot say no. As for the honoring, it is not in the central bank, it is actually in the Ministry of Finance. So we'll alert them.
I think in all
what
fairness,
the CEOs are saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me get back to the panel list now. As you sit here, I'll start with you, Mshoriwa. As you sit here, listen to what the governor is saying and what's coming from everybody else. Well, where's your headspace?
I think the conclusion that I've already come to has not changed. Without adequate reforms, we are just dancing the same tune.
Yeah.
So we can go straight back into a monocurrency without reforming the central bank and how it functions. We have a problem. One critical issue that I had missed, which I think I need to just indicate, it's legislated that government borrowing cannot go above 20% of the previous year's revenues. For one reason or the other, you cannot find a statistic anywhere as to what levels of government borrowing from the central bank. You will not find it. You will look for it. I looked through, even used AI, you will not find it. They will report to you the ratio of borrowing of debt to GDP. They will not report to you the levels of government borrowing. Maybe the Deputy Governor may be able to give us an indication in terms of the percentages. Are we above or below the 20%? But as long as we cannot report honestly on such statistics, this attempted move to go back to a monocurrency is doomed, because that has always been the failure of our currency.
Again, talking to the issues of transparency and building that trust is fundamentally important. Ken, where's your headspace?
I'm not satisfied, Trevor. And the reason why is I don't know anyone else in this room, in this country, that's come forward and said, here's $60 billion available now to grow our economy. I'm talking about something that is of national interest, Professor, because I asked you yesterday the question, how can we all come together on one issue? Our national interest is to unlock capital for ourselves, for our people. Because if we cannot unlock that capital, we will remain poor. I mentioned it yesterday, there's 25 trillion US dollars in the hands of the poor today in the world. That is enough to eradicate poverty from history permanently. But until we understand that to unlock that capital, we are required to have the system and the framework that is stable and consistent. And the only way I can see that happening today, Madam Governor, is by allowing US dollars to continue its tenure indefinitely, or until such time that we have enough confidence and trust in an alternative monetary system. Be it Japanese yen or Chinese yuan or British pounds or euros, I don't know what the future holds. I'm not Nostradamus. But I'm a voice of warning. Please let it be remembered that on the 31st of December, 2030, let us not repeat ourselves in history what we've done so many times before.
Thanks, Ken. The Nigel and Dr. Mugano, I've seen elsewhere hints that the IMF would want to put us on a staff program of some sort. Are we there yet? And would that be a good thing if you've picked up this intelligence or this information? Nigel, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I think clearly being on a staff monitored program does assist. It allows us to be moving towards access to the international capital markets so that we can complement what we don't have, essentially, which is medium to long-term savings. They don't exist. We need those not only for Ken's mortgage market, but we need it for infrastructure finance. So if you add the requirements of just housing to infrastructure finance, which is what the last African Development Bank report, infrastructure finance, 33 billion minimum, 5 billion per year if we took it to 2030, for example. Those would be inflows that we could access in order to actually, grow the economy at rates, by the way, Trevor, that can get us to become a middle to upper income economy. Now, if that is the objective, which we sing merrily along every year, then surely it's in our interest to facilitate that growth. We've got growth from the construction sector.
Right.
We've got growth from the infrastructure sector. Now, for crying out loud, why are we holding back? So it's like you're accelerating with the, handbrake on. Right now, as I said, it's musical chairs between the trio. It's either the politics is bad, or the Reserve Bank is bad, or the Ministry of Finance is bad. And right now, I suspect we're going into elections, we're not going to have one naughty fellow, we're going to have two naughty fellows, and one attempting to behave very well. Are we together?
Yeah.
Now, can we not sit in a room, Trevor, and get that trio to agree that it is imperative for us to actually take the nation forward? That the three must behave so that the private sector can do what it normally does, which is production. That's why.
You've answered the staff monitored program. Dr. Mnganu, there is the big elephant in the room. $21 billion owed to the international community. Debt areas, restructuring and that kind of stuff. All that we're talking about here will amount to nothing if that bit is not sorted out. What's your level of satisfaction as to our ability to get to that cross finish line, have the agreements done, have an arrangement, people taking haircuts and that kind of stuff, and us being able to service our international obligations?
Thank you very much, Trevor, for that question. So for me, the easiest way of dealing with our debt is to stop acquiring new debt at the starting point, right? We must stop acquiring new debt. Then we lock the current debt, then we begin to have a plan to service it. So if you check new dispensation, the second dispensation, Second Republic, our debt was around 10 billion. In 6 years or so, we are not actually 21 billion, we are almost $24 billion. If you look at the recent publication by the IMF, the Article 4, the Staff Monitoring Program, that's where they indicated that government is under reporting debt by $4.5 billion. So you're actually behind, you're above. And so how do you have the ability to service your debt if you are actually accruing more debt and you're hiding it? That's number one. Number two, you recall, Trevor.
Hiding it, or we don't know how much?
No. They're hiding it.
Okay, they're hiding it. Okay.
They're hiding it. So, now, you recall the first meeting of debt resolution by the former, I think it's now former, President of African
Development Bank, yeah.
He issued a 6-page statement. And the last page of the 6-page statement, I can share it with you. There are 3 conditions for debt resolution. The first condition is a big paragraph. One condition, big paragraph. Talks about free and fair elections. Did we have free and fair elections for 2023? 0. Where is the record, official records from SADC? Our elections were condemned. And that's the Commission of Oath for Zimbabwe in terms of election. Human rights, I'm still on one condition.
Yeah.
Abuse, how many people are being taken behind, no trial, breaking of constitution, constitutionalism, implementation of Mushande Commission of Inquiry is one condition I'm talking about. As a minimum requirement which must be met by Zimbabwe to get debt resolution. That's number one. Number two, we must have reforms, economic reforms and staff monetary program, which my brother, Dr. Nigel, has adequately answered, right? To say we must have staff monetary program, but the reforms, are they coming? No. And now, one of the critical issues with the reforms are this, which I was raising with Doc, and I still wanted an answer from Doc. Liberalized exchange rate and functioning exchange rate. And I talked about two instruments which are impeding that free market. This ESA issue and the issue of tax payment, and our exchange are not working. Now, the critical issue of reforms now is the issue of Mtapa Fund. Because we are supposed to have reforms of state-owned enterprises. Now we have a Mtapa investment fund with, I think now, I don't know how much, I last counted, maybe there are now 60 state-owned enterprises in that Mtapa fund. Now how are you going to do privatization, joint venture, commercialization of entities which are now under Mtapa fund, and no transparency in procurement, nothing. So that condition again is gone, can't meet it. The last one, and I like the last one, the way it is cultured and structured. It says, and most critically, comma, hallelujah. Which means that's the most critical one. We must pay the $3.5 billion white farmer compensation deed. So those were the minimum conditions, which were re-emphasized in Samuel Sheikh, if I'm not mistaken, in Egypt by the Americans. So Zidera is going, but those conditions are there. So as far as I'm concerned, we're not going to have debt resolution up to 2030, and it's an issue which will hit the current which I was talking about. But Trevor, maybe I can ask the governor.